Over 2,000 people died instantly. Children on their way to school, families at the breakfast table. It was the largest man-made explosion before Hiroshima. This is the story the world has forgotten, and today we uncover the truth of the Halifax explosion. Halifax was a wartime city. Its harbor, one of the busiest in North America, troop ships, ammunition, food, and supplies flowing to Europe. The north end of Halifax was alive with workers, families, and children. Across the harbor, the Mi'kmaq community of Turtle Grove watched the constant movement of ships. To the people of Halifax, it was just another day. But in the harbor that morning, two ships were about to meet. And that meeting would change history forever. In the Narrows of Halifax Harbour, two ships closed in on each other. The first, the Norwegian vessel Imo, leaving the city, moving too fast through the channel. The second, the French munitions ship Mont-Blanc. Her cargo, tons of benzol, TNT, and picric acid, enough to wipe a city from the map. They saw each other. They tried to signal, but confusion ruled the water. Orders misread, warnings ignored, and slowly the two ships locked onto a collision course. At 8:45 a.m., Imo struck Mont-Blanc's bow. Sparks burst. Fire raced across the deck. Now, Halifax was staring at a floating bomb. At the railway station nearby, dispatcher Vincent Coleman learned the truth. He knew what was on board the Mont-Blanc. He knew the explosion could kill thousands. Coleman could have run, but instead he stayed. Sitting at his telegraph, he tapped out one final warning. Munitions ship on fire, making for Pier 6. Goodbye. Moments later, Halifax was torn apart. At 9:04 a.m., the Mont-Blanc erupted. 2.5 square kilometers of Halifax gone in an instant. Homes shattered like glass. Windows blew out miles away. A fireball ripped through the sky, and the harbor itself rose up. A massive wave, 60 feet high, smashed the waterfront. Those who survived were buried in rubble, blinded by shards of glass, or burned in the fires that followed. In seconds, Halifax had become a wasteland. One of them was firefighter William "Billy" Wells. That morning, Billy and his crew raced aboard their fire engine, the Patricia, toward the burning Mont-Blanc. When the explosion hit, 6 men were killed instantly. Billy Wells was the only survivor. He later recalled, "The blast stripped the clothes off me. It threw me through the air like a rag doll." Years later, he stood for a photograph, holding the shattered steering wheel of the Patricia, a haunting reminder of the moment Halifax was destroyed. The blast left Halifax in ruins. More than 1,600 people were killed instantly. Over 9,000 were injured, and more than 300 would die later from their wounds. Every building within 1.5 miles was destroyed or badly damaged. Entire families were wiped out in an instant. The North End, once a thriving community, was reduced to ashes. Overturned stoves and broken lamps set fire to the ruins, trapping survivors inside. The city burned as rescuers struggled to save the wounded. Windows shattered miles away, and hundreds of people who had been watching the fire through their windows were blinded by flying glass. The explosion was so powerful that the harbor floor was laid bare for a moment before a massive wave, 60 feet high, smashed into the waterfront. A tsunami. In the hours after the blast, Halifax was a city of the dead and the wounded. Hospitals were overwhelmed. Doctors and nurses worked without rest. Schools, churches, and even railway stations were turned into makeshift hospitals. Word of the disaster spread quickly. Within hours, trains loaded with medical teams, supplies, and volunteers raced to Halifax from across Canada. The most famous response came from the city of Boston. When the news reached Massachusetts, an urgent relief train was assembled. Doctors, nurses, and tons of supplies sped north through a winter storm. They reached Halifax within days, saving countless lives. To this day, Halifax sends a Christmas tree to Boston every year as a gift of gratitude. The rebuilding of Halifax took years. Entire neighborhoods had to be rebuilt from the ground up, but out of the ashes came new streets, new homes, and a city determined never to forget. For Halifax, the scars of December 6th never truly faded. Memorials still stand where the city once lay in ruins. Each year, bells toll at the exact moment of the blast, echoing through the harbor, reminding generations of the day when time itself seemed to stop. In Halifax, on that cold December morning, the world changed in an instant. A thriving city was reduced to rubble, families torn apart, and lives forever scarred. Yet out of the devastation came resilience and a determination to rebuild. The Halifax Explosion was not only one of the deadliest tragedies in Canadian history, but also a story of survival, compassion, and memory.